Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and murderers dressed as Santa Claus. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at Silent Night, Deadly Night. This 1984 low-budget slasher follows the life of Billy Chapman, who watched his parents be murdered by a man dressed as Santa. We watch the trauma of this manifest through his childhood all the way into adulthood, where he eventually snaps and goes on a jolly killing spree. Silent Night, Deadly Night was directed by Charles Sellier, who has also directed The Annihilators and produced The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams. The screenplay was written by Michael Hickey in his only screenwriting credit, but he has written and directed several plays. Silent Night stars Robert Brian Wilson from Generations and Santa Barbara as Billy Chapman, Lillian Chauvin from Private Benjamin and Predator 2 as Mother Superior, and Gilmer McCormick from Slaughterhouse-5 and Starting Over as Sister Margaret. Silent Night, Deadly Night was released in November of 1984 with a measly budget of $750,000, and it managed to make $2.5 million in its first 10 days. After that, it was sadly pulled from theaters after the PTA and many angry parents protested the movie for having a killer dressed as Santa Claus. It's especially bizarre considering plenty of killer Santas had already hit the big screen, like in Tales from the Crypt, Christmas Evil, and To All a Good Night. This was the heyday of moral panic and movie banning, and it caused a ton of movies from the mid to late 80s to be absolutely butchered by the MPAA. That's why you may notice today that a lot of the kills are much lower quality than the rest of the film, as they had to be cut from the film for it to be theatrically released. The grainy looking kills come from the unrated version, which was luckily restored. The film was also torn apart by critics who thought it was worthless, talentless splatter, and it was essentially a crime against America. Despite the constant hate, Silent Night, Deadly Night was able to be shown on home media, and it managed to rack up 4 sequels and a remake. It is a cult film if nothing else. Only horror fans can really truly appreciate these sort of low-budget endeavors. It currently has a 44 and 39% on Rotten Tomatoes, so while its original disdain has lessened, its flaws still prevent it from being loved by most. I've seen Silent Night, Deadly Night a few times now, unsurprisingly always around Christmas time. I wouldn't say it's a personal favorite, but it does have some really fun and violent moments, and I'm always happy to revisit it. I hope y'all haven't been naughty this year, because we're watching Silent Night, Deadly Night. The movie opens on Christmas Eve 1971 as we meet the Chapman family, including Father Jim, Mother Ellie, older son Billy, and lil baby Ricky. They are traveling to the Utah mental facility where Grandpa Chapman has been sent to live out the rest of his days. He's completely catatonic, apparently unaware of everything around him. The parents go to review his records, leaving Billy alone with the geezer. Of course, he jolts to life and tells the young boy he should be afraid.
Christmas Eve is the scariest damn night of the year.
He tells Billy that Santa only brings gifts to the good boys and girls, and those who have been naughty are punished. Billy admits he hasn't been entirely good, and Grandpa Chapman tells him to run if he sees Old Saint Nick. Billy's parents return, and Grandpa goes back to being a statue, and as they leave, Billy promises Grandpa he'll be good from now on. Billy asks his parents if Santa ever punished them, and to my surprise, they actually believe Grandpa talked to him. Ellie tells her son Grandpa is crazy, and Billy fears she will be punished for saying that. Meanwhile, a Scroogey store clerk is being held up by a guy dressed as Santa. The clerk tries to pull his gun and takes a shot to the chest, and as Santa clears the register, he's finished off with 2 more shots. Santa peels out with his measly $31, and sometime later the Chapman family runs into him in the middle of the road. They stop to help the guy, who quickly pulls his gun on them, and Jim slams the car into reverse. Santa fires some shots and stops their escape, and Billy exits and runs to some nearby shrubbery. Santa is a sharpshooter and killed Jim with those shots, and he pulls the terrified Ellie out onto the pavement. He rips her shirt open and she slaps him, causing Santa to pull out his switchblade and slit her throat. Santa calls out for Billy momentarily, but eventually heads out, leaving Billy and baby Ricky alive but orphaned. We jump to 3 years later at St. Mary's Home for Orphaned Children, where Billy is being reprimanded for his gruesome drawing by Mother Superior. Sister Margaret feels bad for the traumatized boy and wants to help him, but Superior refuses to give Billy any special treatment. Margaret does convince Billy to join the other kids outside, but he gets distracted by some strange noises. Through a very big keyhole, he watches as a couple gets very sensual, triggering Billy back to his mother's murder. Mother Superior intervenes and beats the couple with a belt while yelling "Satan!" and hunts down Billy with her belt still in hand. Oh, Ricky is here also. Mother Superior tells Billy that people who do naughty things are always caught and their following punishment is necessary and good. That's why Billy Boy gets a whooping as well, and that night Billy has nightmares about the killer Santa and his dead dad. He wakes up and runs right into Superior, who ties him to his bed frame for the rest of the night. It's Christmas Day now, and Mother Superior plans on having Billy sit on Santa's lap. That goes about as well as expected, and terrified Billy cowers in a corner until Mother Superior finds him and probably beats him again. Now we jump ahead another 10 years, where Sister Margaret is setting a surprisingly handsome Billy up with a job at a toy store. Now enjoy a 2-minute montage of Billy working at the store over several months with some truly strange musical choices.
And I won't need no more on the one side of the door.
It's a real treat to behold, and it brings us all the way to December, and it appears Billy's work ethic and attitude have been slipping lately. Billy gets frightened by the store's Santa, and nice coworker Pamela helps calm him down. Billy dreams about getting sexy with Pam, but an evil Santa hand comes from the darkness and cuts him open. Store owner Mr. Sims and manager Mrs. Randall discuss that their store Santa broke his ankle, and Sims recruits Billy to take over the role. Billy is literally threatening these poor children, but the parents and Mr. Sims are pleased, so whatever works, I guess. Margaret calls up the store and learns of Billy's new position, and the store gets ready for their post-Christmas party.
Time to get shit-faced!
Billy gives in to peer pressure and has a drink, and he watches as Pamela sneaks to the back with mean coworker Andy. He watches as the two make out, and drunken Sims says he better get started with his Santa duties, not knowing that they have very different interpretations on what that means. Pam and Andy head into the storeroom with Billy not far behind, who walks in on Andy trying to rape the poor woman. This of course triggers Billy back to his mother's murder, and he wraps some Christmas lights around Andy's neck and strangles him with one arm. Must be all that milk he's been drinking. Pamela calls Billy crazy and tells him to go away, but he grabs a box cutter and slits her torso open. Mr. Sims goes to investigate the noise, and Billy kills him with a hammer claw to the dome. The only employee left is Mrs. Randall, who finds the corpse of Mr. Sims and runs. The doors are locked, so she tries to call for help, but Billy confronts her with a fire axe. She runs and hides, even managing to trick Santa for a moment, but before she can break the glass, Billy shoots her with an arrow in the gut. Billy heads out into the night, narrowly missing Sister Margaret, who finds the body of Mrs. Randall. Now we've got about 15 minutes of random violence, starting with this horny couple, who just happens to be played by Scream Queen Linnea Quigley and Halloween 6's Leo Getter. Big Sister Denise tells Cindy Santa won't come if she doesn't go to bed, which successfully convinces the child to stop interrupting their lovemaking. She hears some jingling at the door and assumes it's the cat wanting to come inside, and of course she heads upstairs topless. The cat runs inside, and then Billy, who is here for no discernible reason, attacks her. He breaks down the door and nearly clobbers her with an axe throw, but her ultimate death is much worse. Billy grabs Denise and impales her on a mounted buck's antlers, which leaves her almost looking like a Christmas angel. Up next is boyfriend Tommy, who Billy grabs and gets into a little ho-ho-hoedown with. Tommy actually gets the best of him but doesn't double tap, and Billy kills him via strangulation and a throw from a second-story window. Cindy comes out to say hi to Santa, and since she promises to Billy she's been good, he gives her a festive box cutter. Meanwhile, cops have gone on the hunt for their killer Santa, but so far they've only found fathers and have destroyed childhood memories. Their search does cause Billy to hide, which leads him to a hillside. Here some boys have their sleds taken by these bullies named Bob and Mac, and they are way too hype about this baby-ass hill. Billy jumps out from the trees and beheads Bob, whose sled and head still make it down to Mac. The next day, Margaret learns of these three newest kills, and the police captain asks her what she thinks his next move could be. I mean, the only logical step is going back to St. Mary's, where Mother Superior is now wheelchair bound, but still just as strict. Margaret and Captain Richards head out together, and he also orders Officer Barnes to get there first. Here comes Santa Claus right on cue, and as Ricky walks up to say hi, Officer Barnes pulls up and shoots Santa 3 times in the back. Sorry Barnes, that wasn't Billy, just good old Father O'Brien, who is deaf and works at the orphanage. Barnes gets a good scolding from Mother Superior for his murder, but she allows him to patrol the grounds while Captain Richards is on his way. As Mother Superior and the children sing carols, Officer Barnes bebops around the property until he is intrigued by a weird underground shed. There's no sign of Billy down there though, because he is waiting outside. A chop sends Barnes hurtling down the stairs to his death, and a second chop beheads this innocent snowman. This dumbass kid just lets Billy inside, and Mother Superior tells the children to get behind her. Billy calls Superior naughty and whips out his axe, but before he can strike, he is shot in the back by Richards. Margaret holds Billy as he bleeds out, and he tries to comfort the terrified children.
You're safe now. Santa Claus is gone.
The movie ends with a slow pan up to Ricky, who dons his brother's infamous quote to call Mother Superior naughty. And that's Silent Night, Deadly Night. It's always a fun time. It's by no means a spectacular film, it screams low budget, and its weakest point is probably its acting, which is always a tough hurdle to jump over. But it does have some surprisingly strong aspects like the cinematography and music, which actually make the movie creepier than it has any right to be. And while the acting isn't great, I think that's a part of why it achieved its cult status, as it makes the movie fun to watch, which I think is necessary because the plot actually goes to some very dark places throughout and it needs something to hang on to. A lot of the kills are also surprisingly creative and fleshed out, especially given the tiny budget. I think the most compelling aspect is the movie's structure though, as it takes us through 3 phases in Billy's life. It kind of reminds me of what Rob Zombie did with Michael Myers, as we watch Billy struggle with his trauma and struggle to not regress into madness. Billy is a victim in his own right, and if not for his childhood full of trauma and abuse, he probably would have grown up to be okay. The movie does a good job of making you feel for him, which makes it a bit harder for you to root against him during his killing spree. Billy's death is a bit anticlimactic, but I think that helps to keep his role between villain and victim a little more murky. I am sad the movie was pulled from theaters and critically demolished, as I'm sure it had a negative impact on the lives of all the young crew members and actors. Luckily, the franchise did manage to survive, and it has 4 sequels and a remake, and boy did they go to some weird ass places. I'll try to cover 1 or 2 of them in the following Decembers, because they are a lot of fun. All in all though, Silent Night, Deadly Night is very violent, very trashy, and very entertaining. It's probably a movie that only works for us about horror fans, but for those of us who appreciate these labor of love sort of movies, it is tradition to watch it during the Christmas season. Well, that's about it. Next week I'll be checking out 2011's The Thing, which is a prequel to John Carpenter's The Thing. Be sure to check out my review of that if you haven't already. It is one of my least watched videos after all. Thank you all for joining me, and an extra thank you to my patrons. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and thanks for watching Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of Silent Night, Deadly Night. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all my horror reviews. And if you want to help support the channel further, you should check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks y'all.